Okay, so just to recap what we're going to talk about today, process automation specifically for small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses. We're going to talk about the technology, AI, the three components really, AI, natural language programming, NLP, and RPA, robotic process automation. Those are the three in which the service is delivered on. We're going to talk specifically about what are the benefits for the small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses. And we're going to go through some case examples. We're going to show you some examples of how we feel it can fit into your process. We're going to talk about the application of unstructured and structured data. Structured meaning already in a software format, like a table. Unstructured, like a video and voice call, kind of like what we're doing now. And we're going to also demonstrate how automation requires zero requirements to manage on behalf of the customer. And at the end, we're going to explain to you our no-risk proposal. Okay,
Great.
so first and foremost, we automate tasks that no one wants to do. Okay, so just to recap quickly, the process automation, the technology. Yeah, so of course, as we're doing the slide deck, as I'm talking, I'm definitely coordinating visual cues with the prospect, right? Automation of benefits. So this is just what I just went through now, the case examples, unstructured versus structured data, zero requirements to manage, and then we roll into our no risk proposal. Okay, is that good? Is that clear, guys?
Yep.
Okay, so keep in mind that as we're doing the presentation here, it's not a monologue. We want to understand as we move along and as we open up the avenues, we want to understand, we want the prospect to engage with their pain points. We want to understand where their pain points are and where they feel that they have repetitive processes, where they feel, so it's almost like a preliminary analysis of where the automation can be. And once you can make that connection, with the prospect that, oh yeah, I see a possible application and it's no risk, then those two merge into a very positive probability outcome. Okay, so what do we do first and foremost? We automate tasks that no one wants to do. And we do it for simple and also complex tasks. Where do we do it? These are the main departments that we do it. So in manufacturing processes, in front and back office applications, in finance and accounting, sales and marketing, operations, supply chain, and human resources. Those are some of the main departments that we work with. Of course, we can step out into other customized, so we're going to customized areas. We'll show you how we do that. Some of the applications here that we deal with, I'm just going to run through a couple of them. So manufacturing, R&D, product development, accounting, services, conversations, some operations, supply chain monitoring, compliance monitoring, competitive price monitoring, sales through CRM systems, automatic entries, client onboarding, and then there's HR related to onboarding new employees, performance reporting, also candidate interviews, interview knowledge. So there's a wide range, and these are just some of the areas. So we want to start to open up some of the areas and try to make a match with the prospect. When we talk about the technology, we're talking about robotic process automation, RPA, which requires structured data, and natural language processing, which processes unstructured data into structured data and then is ready for RPA automation. Okay, very quick snapshot as to what's happening in 2022. You guys can see we're on a serious ramp up for the implementation of automation into the enterprise. Now, automation has historically been for large companies. So large companies now, as we know, they have in large part an unfair playing field because they already have these tools that a lot of their companies use, a lot of their employees use, which makes them much more efficient than the smaller, medium-sized business. And historically, it's been unable to penetrate into the medium and small-sized businesses because it's just been too costly. It's just too much of a development phase. So our platform specifically targets the small and medium-sized businesses, which allows them to have the same type of automation capability as a large-sized enterprise. So the natural language processing is a much newer step. So that is the ability to take video and audio, unstructured data, and also to automate that is really a very unique selling proposition that Shain has. So we automate tasks that no one wants to do for small and medium-sized businesses for structured and non-structured data. Okay, let's jump into what the benefits are. Why would a company want to automate anyway? Well, there's steps, tasks that no one likes to do. And we want to help them. We want to really partner with the employees and become their assistants. We want to take away those pain points for them. We want them to come to work and to feel that they're participating in more innovative work. We're also going to reduce costs by up to 50% if we're successful in our automation. Higher efficiencies and more competitiveness. So if companies hold back and their competitors are becoming more efficient in automating, it puts them at a competitive disadvantage. And of course, they want to inspire and free employees from boring work. We're also going to include a repurposing plan. And we assist, of course, in labor shortages, which is a growing problem today. So by automating, these are the main automation benefits for companies. And also that there's no learning curve, there's no user login requirement, there's no training. The automation just gets deployed and it works on its own. Okay, some case examples. Let's just take a snapshot case example. So monitoring and servicing ease for equipment manufacturers, so order fulfillment, bill of materials, purchase order processing, so we can automate a lot of these steps. Guys, I'm just going to jump in, and I'm also going to say that what we're going to add to this demonstration here is going to be a specific case walkthrough of what a screenshot would look like as to what an automation would do. So we're just giving the highlight of where the applications could be, but we're also going to introduce just a very quick application that can, again, look to resonate with prospective buyers. Data management in between systems, so report consolidation, competitive product and pricing availability, compliance monitoring. So just recently, I had a consultation with a company that has to be UL certified. And knowing the UL certifications across all the different jurisdictions across the entire world where their products go is a very laborious job. So we have an automation for that can monitor and signal to the managers when any UL certification changes. So that's one of the automations. Related to operations, so inventory management, sales order flow. Right now, I'll tell you right now, one of our demonstrations is going to be related to an accounting function. And this is when companies receive invoices by email from suppliers. You guys ever come across that when you receive an email from a supplier, and then for a company, they for all their operations, a lot of the invoices come in through email, and they're either in PDF, mostly are in PDF, most come in through their accounting system, or most come in through either Word documents or Excel, even Excel sheets, or some come in as images. Sure. So what we're doing here is when the email comes in, Shain will recognize that email. So he'll recognize that email. He'll take that invoice. He'll log into the accounting system. He'll update the category invoice, enter it into the accounts payable, and then send a message to the manager at the end of the day that which ones he's processed, and we'll look for an approval. Once the manager clicks that approval button, the invoices get automatically populated into the accounting system. So every company that has an accounts payable clerk that does that is a prospect for automation. And that's just one application in one department.
Sure.
Okay, so unformatted supplier invoices, what we talked about now, handwritten documents, various format file extensions. So we're able to process in different formats. And right now, if you have an employee that just reads invoices and then enters the looks up the vendor, enters the detail of the invoice date, payment terms. So all this is one of our automations. Okay, spreadsheets and PDFs, ERP systems, CRM. So it's not just limited to an accounting package, ERP systems and CRM. So any software package and software program that's managed by people, we can automate a lot of the processes in between the systems. We can become the regulator of transmission of information and conversion of information from one system into another. Okay, so I had a meeting with a company, and one example, one of our automations that we're going to be doing is they right now sell their products across a lot of the public web stores like Wayfair, Amazon, eBay, and every time they have to download data from each of those reselling stores, and then that data is in different formats, and they have somebody consolidating it into just one general picture how their online is going, and then that goes into their management information system. That's a big job. That's a big job for them because they have a lot of products. So we're starting an implementation of automation for that.
Fantastic.
Okay, so unstructured data. So we talked about this before. So team meetings, conversations, documents, emails, we capture that information into an output, into a trained report. We looked at the demonstration last time with the Door Doctor and with Drew's medical conversation. And then we push it into the management information system. That's the automation component. Okay, so this was we looked at this before here, the garage door conversation, and we're extracting this information. We're going from a non-structured data, which is a conversation, into a structured data. And we can, of course, we're going to customize it specifically. So there's a lot of time savings here for the company. So what we want to do is we want to demonstrate that time savings. No user login, so no administrative. So one of the pushbacks you're going to get, oh, we don't have enough people to manage this. It's too technology heavy for us. Nothing can be further from the truth. There's no training. There's no login requirements. There's no time. There's no training. There's nothing required from the user other than spending the time for us to understand the automation. So it's a 100% automation. Then we're going to roll into the important part here, which is the automation study. So up until here, you guys have seen pretty much everything. I'm going a little faster. So now let's go into the automation study, which is part of our proposal. So the automation study is to enable us to discover the automation readiness of a company, if it's automatable at all. So, that's a key point in your sales presentations, because maybe the company's not automatable, and that will assist you in terms of moving forward into a no risk contract. You guys understand how that would work? So it's part of the sales presentation. Part of the proposal is that, well, we don't know if your company can be automated.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I would even say, as I was taking notes and listening, my style and method with sales calls is, before even the presentation is up, and that's really where we get to talk about our process and what we do, is asking a few set of questions that to see if we're even a good fit and can we help them from a business standpoint, right? If they meet certain criterias and so forth before even getting to this. And then, so from their mindset, they're going to say, wow, okay, yeah, I can see if we're a good fit or not. And then at this point, there's less risk here because we still need to discover the automation readiness.
Right. Okay. So just 2 points to that, Drew. So, that's completely true, and a very, very good point. If we're reselling a standard package that they have to buy into. Okay. But remember, we're selling a no risk proposal. So the way that we want to use it is as follows. It may be contrary to what you may think, because we don't necessarily want them to think that it's a great fit.
No, I'm not saying it is or it isn't.
Right.
I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying, when we talked about, I don't know if you want to pause this part. Well,
No, go on. It's just open discussion.
Yeah. Again, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to, Mark, or whoever else is doing this. But I found that it's So instead of going right into the presentation and then having a dialogue during the presentation, uh, I've been successful where there is this keeping the frame of mind, learning about the business, seeing if they're even a good fit to even proceed in
Right.
this presentation, right? Do they have the right amount of people, right? We talked about the size of the business.
Yeah, definitely. So
what are
all
their
these pre-qualifications
right? What are
are
their pain?
important.
Yeah, what are their pain points? Why do they want to grow? Like, why do they even need this? If they don't have a goal in mind or so forth, and then say, okay, based on that, for me, it hasn't been helpful with the psychology of selling to open up a dialogue and ask certain questions during this because they're looking at the screen and so forth. So
Okay.
that was the only thing.
Gotcha.
It's just yeah.
Okay, so let me continue, and then we'll
Sure.
continue this discussion. We'll continue this discussion.
Yeah.
Just to conclude to underscore my point is that you don't necessarily want to have the company believe that it's a great fit, because if they're so convinced that their company is automatable, it's going to turn into a price game. They're just going to turn to price, and they're just going to want a low cost entry point, right? Whereas if they don't know, and we don't know either, how ready we can assist them, then the no risk proposal makes much more sense for them, because there's no cost. The risk is higher, and there's no cost associated with it. So that's an important aspect to a no risk proposal sale. So let's go on. Okay, so the automation study, we're going to interview the employees, we're going to confirm the pain points, we identify the repetitive tasks, the diagnostic tool that we're going to use to deploy. We propose our first automation, right? So we're going to come back and we're going to say, okay, we reviewed 5 or 6 areas. We think these 5 or 6 are great, but we think this one's really good. I think this one has your biggest pain point. We get buy-in to the first automation, and then we start to develop it. We're going to calculate the efficiency that's saved. So remember that we're establishing a cost base. So that cost base is really important. That's what dictates our bill. So we establish the cost base, and then we calculate the efficiency saved. And then we propose to calculate the efficiency. We say, okay, this is how much we're going to save, and then we want them to get buy-in to move forward with that automation. We have a repurpose plan. And then once we get buy-in, we build and we deploy that first automation. We create that first proof of concept. Okay, so up until that point, the company has paid nothing. So we're going to do all that really with no charge yet. So why is that important? Well, not all automation projects succeed. Okay, so here we want to be forthcoming and say that we're not saying that we can completely deliver the moon. What we're saying is that we can take the first steps. What we're saying is we're going to do that automation study at no risk to you, our risk.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no guarantee that it's going to work. Software projects and automation projects are characterized with a lot of cost overruns. It's very common, happens almost all the time, that you're going to go past your targets. Automation, even from manufacturing, from physical automation to any type of automation or any type of project like this. So we're going to conduct that automation study, build that first automation and the first proof of concept. And our proposal is, after the satisfaction, our fee is really a partnership equal share, 50-50 split of the savings. So that's our no risk proposal. Let's walk into an example. Okay, so a current manual task costs $1,000 per month, right? So we've established the cost base. So now we have a customer that says, okay, this is my pain point. We dive into it. We establish the cost is $1,000 a month, and we prepare an automation, and we can bring that cost down to $500 a month. So that's a cost reduction of savings of $500 a month for the company. And then after satisfaction, our fee is, once we deploy that and they're satisfied with it and they say, hey, I love this thing, then our fee is $250 a month. So that's an example. Of course, that you could share during the demonstration. Everything here is really for the customer, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so let's recap now. So there's no upfront costs. There's no retainer. There's no development costs. Python AI developers are quite expensive these days, so we're absorbing that. It includes updates and maintenance, so the thing is not going to run on its own forever. It requires some maintenance, and if there's changes, for example, if they change their ERP system, if they make any changes, or the credentials change, so all these things are included in the partnership split. Now, there's only a fee if they continue to use the automation. After 3 months, for whatever reason, if they stop using it, they downsize, they have a problem, whatever it is. There's no long-term commitment to using it if they're using it in normal circumstances. So normal circumstances meaning, well, they're not using it just to copy it, or they're not using it to bring in a lower cost. So there is a 48-month term agreement that's part of the agreement. But if they stop using it, then the license gets canceled. Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to go through an example here. Let's just look at example. So in this particular case, so if the automation works that we propose, if it works, they get a 25% reduction in cost, which is, and now if you start adding that across a lot of their employees and workers, that could be substantial for them.
Absolutely.
If the automation fails, there's no charge to them. There's no fee. So we're taking a big risk. We're taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
So in all cases, for all prospects, there's no upfront costs. If they stop using it, there's no cost. And there's no time on their behalf required. So there's really, it's really a win-win scenario for them. Okay, but there is a risk. And that risk is pushed back to us. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, question on the previous slide. So no time required. I'd like to understand the minimum hours and time that we need for the initial automation and readiness, or in that discovery process once they sign the contract. And
yeah, good question. I would say it's going to be if we look at each department. So we're going to interview an accounting clerk. So it's going to be about a 30-minute interview.
Okay.
And then once we establish the target automation, then we're going to want to record their steps. So we have the deployment to record their tasks and their steps, and that's just that's already so that's a software tool that we're going to use to capture their steps. So they just have to run that. So there's very little time required for that. So it's a sample, just a sample that we need. Right, so you can take that by each department, right? So if there's 4 departments, it'd be about 2 hours.
So 30 minutes per department, and that's the initial. So when we talk about 30 days project time to deployment, not 30 days, 90 days. I'm getting my different offers confused. When we're talking about this, and there's 90 days now, that could be reduced to 60 or 30 as we continue to grow and Shain grows. But it depends on how complex. So let's say in that 90 days, I would want to, for example, with Big Boost Marketing, it's a couple hours per week. You add that up per month because they're engaging with a project manager, this, that. I understand there's not much time here. However, okay, that initial meeting, we do the keystrokes, we do all those things, we're building it out. What about quality control testing? What about saying, hey, please review this before it goes live? What about things that you would see in a digital project of getting approval from client and review and so forth?
Yeah, I mean that's all included. So we're going to go through, and they're not involved until we deploy it. So once we deploy it, they're going to try it. Remember, it's an internal automation. It runs on their servers, on their system. So they're going to deploy it, and then they're either going to see the benefit or not see it. So if they see the benefit, then then it'll just continue to run. And if they want to make some changes or updates to it, then we'll engage with that. But that should be, if we get it right at the beginning, it should be minimal.
Got it. Okay, so would it be fair to say 30 minutes in the beginning per department, and then when we launch, we're going to the Shain team would present 30 minutes? Like, here's what we've built, here's how it works. Like,
I guess, I mean,
because I don't want to say no time required. I want to be realistic to say, it's very minimal. Like total time is 30
Yeah.
minutes.
So
a
when we
week.
say when we say no time,
Mhm.
it really means minimal time, because
Okay.
if we talk about time required for software deployments, they would need an IT department, right?
Right. Or engagement with our team of some sort if they don't have their own
Yeah.
and
So
other
the
types
point to
of
underscore here is
Yeah, yeah.
that they don't need to hire IT personnel to make
Right.
this
Right.
work.
Okay.
That's what we mean by no time required. So you can make a change, whatever you want to make a change to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe I'll make that change. I'll change that to minimal time required.
Okay.
And maybe I'll add that. That's not a bad idea, Drew. I'll add maybe the time the time interaction required to discover and dig deep. And you guys are going to get very good at that, because
Yeah.
we want to discover all these automations, right? Because every automation means more income.
Right. And it'll blow them away because when they're used to working with enterprise level companies or not, or they're used to working with a web developer and so forth, which has, in this week, you're going to accomplish this. And this week, you're going to work. And all we say is 30 minutes here, 30 minutes here. We do the rest. They'll be like, this is amazing. So it's to
Yeah.
their benefit to see that it's minimal. Okay. Yeah.
It was very carefully it was very carefully thought out as part of our development process, because when you're selling automation and solution to pain points, you don't want to exchange 4 quarters for $1. We don't want to solve the automation problem and their pain, and then now add this extra layer of management for them.
Right. No, of course, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's really the underscore here is that
Yeah.
they have no money up front. If there's no long-term commitment, if it doesn't work, there's no cost to them. If it works, they benefit from it, and they have minimal time involved, right? So
Yes.
we'll put that about an hour per department. That would be
Okay.
fair.
And one more very important thing that came up to mind
Yeah.
is how do we retain stickiness and give them surety if they're not used to tracking benefits of automation? Meaning, in the beginning,
Mhm.
we analyze and say, based on our conversations, based on what you've shared with us, based on the keystrokes, we've determined that there's this much in work that can be saved, and here's the report. But then we go to B, so we go from A to B, Pain Island to Pleasure Island, and they're using it. Do we have some sort of calculator and monitoring that's running in the background that's showing that you have indeed saved this much? Because I wouldn't want to get into a position of, well, it's working, Lawrence and Drew and Mark, but I don't know. We haven't done our quarterly review yet of our expenditures. Do we have some sort of monitoring calculator that can say you've saved this much this month?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the process, Drew. So we establish the cost base. So that cost base is important. So that cost base is going to define what they're paying for that task. So it's going to be there's a few components to that. And we're going to focus primarily on the human component, right? The time that's required. But there's also an error cost, because people make errors in their entries, and there's also a cost to delay. We're going to be much faster than someone that's entering it manually. So once we establish the cost base, and then we present the automation portion and how much it's going to save them. So that's all done at the beginning, right? Before we deploy it, before we actually build it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't want to build it for no reason.
No,
So
that's clear. Yeah.
Right. So once we build it and once we deploy it, it doesn't mean that they're firing their staff the next day. So they're
okay. I'm not. That wasn't my question. That wasn't where I was
so
going.
your question is, how do you monitor? The question is, how do you know if there's a real time savings for that? If there's a real cost savings for that?
Right.
That's your question.
Yeah. The first part is you've established the basis and the initial analysis. I think that's wonderful. I think, yeah. How do we then month to month or bi-weekly show that indeed?
Yeah. So we are not running their business. Okay. All we're doing is we're automating one of their steps. Okay. So once we establish the cost base, and then we establish the cost through the automation, that difference is going to be our fee. So your question is, how do you know that's going to always stay, right? That's your question. How do you know, like next month, that all of a sudden it gets more complicated for them and they have to start spending more to execute this task?
Yeah, or they see a downward trend of, wow, since we've implemented Shain, we've noticed that we are indeed saving 25%. So what I'm getting at is there's calculators out there that I've seen for like marketing and other things. I think it would,
Yeah.
again, I'm not putting anything down here. I am so excited to get this into people's hands, and I think
No, I
it's
understand. I understand. Good point, Drew. It's a good
Yeah.
point.
What I think would help us, because we just had an issue with a client where without the proper reporting, quality control testing reports showing this is what our team did versus what your staff did, there could be a blame game going on, and this is a separate industry. So what I'm saying with us is not so much relying on their company CFO to say, yeah, you know what, we are seeing a downward trend, we want to keep using this, but to have a simple calculator that is running in the background, and if we can continue to monitor what Shain is doing for that company, which I think would be not easy, but I think it would be capable because Shain is automating. I think
Right.
just monitoring what Shain is doing for that company and saying, you continue to be at these things. By the way, we noticed an uptick, and I'll be short here, and I apologize. We noticed an uptick this week. There was more keystrokes this week, but guess what? Because Shain was already in place, we've actually saved you 2 times, 3 times more. Is that something down the road that we could, I think that would.
Well, I'm just trying to understand, how it would work, because remember, this is per task, right? So if we're automating one account payable task, then the time to execute that task should not change from the automation point of view. So the cost to execute that task, as long as they're still doing the task, right? As long as they're still doing the task as part of their operation, which of course we're going to make sure that they do, because then we wouldn't want to automate it anyway. Then that cost is a fixed cost that should stay. It doesn't mean that that person is going to get fired or is going to lose half their salary.
No, yeah.
Right. So what happens is that over time, that person is going to be repurposed for other types of work, more inspiring work, forward generating work. Right. So what we will show is that our automation is performing the task at a specific cost, and that cost is half of what it was before. That the savings are reduced by the numbers that we proposed. Okay, so there is a risk. So we talk about no risk proposal. So of course there is a risk, and the risk is our risk. So we're taking the risk, meaning that maybe there's no automation. So this ties into what we were talking about before, right? So the company may say, oh, I don't want to do this. Yeah, I'd rather just, pay someone much cheaper or less and then just, be in control. But, the risk is that maybe there's no automation. So the risk is our risk. We're going to engage in the study. We're going to spend our time investigating. We're going to create this detailed automation analysis study. And maybe there's no automation. So, at that point, there's no invoice for us. There's no fee, right? So this is a tactic that's used to reassure the company that a no risk proposal is better for them.
Right.
Because if there is automation 100%, like I mentioned before, then it becomes, okay, well, it's a commodity now. So let me just turn it into a price thing. So we want to stay away from that. So we incur the automation study costs. So once we get to that first proof of concept, we establish the cost base, we get to the first proof of concept, and they say, yeah, okay, let's do it. This is the first one. Okay, we get green light, we start developing it, right? So that development is 30, 60 to 90 days, could be depending on the complexity of the automation. So it would be maybe good to stick to maybe simpler automations at the beginning, get the ball rolling with the customer, and then take on more complex, longer automations after. So that's kind of what our automation study is going to suggest.
Okay.
So there's a cost associated to that, 30, 60, 90 days. We have to pay for the development for that. This is all customized off of our platform. but that's also what makes. Did someone jump in?
No, I was just giving a comment to Mark.
Oh, okay. That was
Yeah.
yeah, because I have my full screen on, so I can't see the Zoom dashboard.
Yeah.
Okay, so we incur 60 to 90 days of development costs. Okay, our fee, we talked about that. Let's continue. And there's also the financing of the automation, right? So we're talking about, a 90-day period, which we're going to develop that. We're going to do the automation study. We're going to deploy it. So there's no upfront cost for them. So we're financing it. So that, again, is our risk.
Mm-hmm.
And also the automation can be small too. So maybe there's no automation, but what if the automation is small? What if we come across, certain small areas, and ultimately the fee is below our cost? So we're really running at a loss. So that's a risk for us. So, we're going to be selective with the companies that we're going to work with. We don't want to start doing no risk proposals to anybody and everybody.
Right. And this goes back to what I was saying before the presentation, asking the right questions, really getting a deep understanding if they are, when I say the right fit, I mean the right fit to proceed in the presentation, to proceed to even go down this path, because we don't want to incur.
Right, but Drew, I'm gonna repeat that what you're saying is factual. I understand that. Okay, well, if they're too small and there's no automation, then let's walk away. But I'm saying that the approach is the same for a larger company, even if you feel that there's automation, because you don't really know. The approach is the same.
It is, but I don't want to be sending Shain, and I don't want to be going through the process of. I spoke to 3 or 4 or 5 different companies, and 3 out of the 5 are not a good fit. And now we've done 90 days. You've incurred costs. There's no commissions. So I totally see what you're saying. It's the same process, but I do believe we have a criteria to make the best assertions as possible, so that it's not Russian roulette. Yeah. By the time
I completely understand what you're saying, but that's not my point. You're missing my point. Okay. Let's say you have a 200 employee company. You're talking a 200 employee company. You know that half their business is doing all this manual invoicing stuff, manual stuff. You have experience putting it together now. You can kind of see like where the automation lies, right?
Sure.
You still want to be upfront and tell them that there may not be no automation for them, even though you may feel that there is. You want to tell them that maybe there's no automation, like you're not sure, because maybe there isn't. Like we don't know until we start going into the process, and that automation could be small. Maybe it's just a small fraction. Maybe they integrate an ERP system, and that ERP system does a lot of the automations in the middle of our system. So I'm just saying that the risk has to be clearly outlined, and it'll assist you into signing a no risk contract with them.
Oh yeah, no. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think this is similar to what I'm used to seeing, which is in marketing, there's no guarantees. In public relations, there's no guarantees. Meaning there's no guarantees of results, but we have track record knowing that these methodologies and formulas and procedures do work, but we can't guarantee success. Right. We can't guarantee
the approach
success.
The approach is the same. Yeah. So that tends. So we're just underscoring the risk. So any other software company that comes in and says, "Hey, we can do it, no problem, bells whistling," it's not necessarily true, and they want to charge you up front.
Correct.
Wasn't that the same when we did the R&D?
It's the exact same approach, Mark. This is our
Exactly.
R&D model.
Well,
we know the model. We know the model very well, Drew.
Yeah,
this is how we built the whole R&D on it.
Yeah, and I'm not.
Because when we approach companies for the R&D, I mean, we're gonna really work and see if there's an angle to file a claim, but there's still that possibility,
of course,
of not being able to claim.
Of course,
we don't even know because we haven't started the analysis. We haven't started the R&D analysis or the automation analysis. We think, based on the industry, based on the profile, we think it's good. We're ready to make that investment to determine if you could be the right candidate, and we can save you this, bring you into an automation, start your digital transformation.
So just a curiosity, and it's we and I think Drew touched on it. We want to touch on companies that the success rate is high in getting them to sign. Um, in which sector? Would the webinar of what you've done, or is it too much at the beginning stages where it gives you an idea of certain sectors that would lead to a successful signing?
Yeah, I think we're going to find that out as we move along, which sectors are
Yeah.
more open to our plan than others. Yeah, yeah, I agree, and we should specialize too. I think everybody should specialize within their segment and their sector.
Yeah, I think that's what
Okay,
we're
let
saying.
me just wrap this up.
Sure.
The last risk is really for us is, we need cooperation from the company too, right? So it's really a partnership, because we're going to invest, do the work, get everything done, but they have to follow their part also, and it's really a partnership, which really underscores and substantiates the 50-50 split. Really.
Yes.
So if they feel that there's that there's risk for us as well, and we can share with them testimonials, of course. Those are on our website. They feel they're free to visit the website, and you can get into communication with any one of the companies, some of our partners on our website. And that's the end.